And formulate an opinion on it. Illari isn't something where we can comment on her until we actually play her. Like I said, she's pretty OP because that's what I've seen. All these changes right here don't really mean anything until you actually figure out, like not changes, just like stuff here doesn't mean anything until you actually figure out how it engages with the rest of the game, how it clicks into place with all the other gears in the game. Yeah, so like even though the hero's here and hero's cool and everything, she has pretty cool hero design. Reminds me a lot of what's the tank in Solaria in League of Legends? She's basically a sun tank. I think she's a support though. League of Legends sun tank. Actually, a sun is actually a tank. Okay, well that makes things more difficult. Fiona. There's a lot of basically characters designed around the sun, you know, which is just character design in and of itself. Doesn't mean they're played exactly the same way, because they aren't, because one's a tank and other's sport. MOBAs and games copy from each other since time began, so there's nothing outside the ordinary there. Character Illari is pretty cool looking, and she does pretty cool stuff, so, you know, whatever. That's just the way it goes. Yeah. Invasions, we'll take a look at that. I'm pretty sure I'm going to buy it just to play it, so I can comment on it more so than actually interested in playing it. PvE, I'm pretty sure, is just going to be like Star Watch, which is going to be a one and done, and you paid $5 for it, and basically 4 years of development time, which is more detrimental than anything, is the fact that they wasted time on a one and done PvE missions, one and done PvE missions instead of the rest of the game. Like I mentioned before, and I've mentioned in all my videos, and when we talk about Overwatch 2, they can do all these things. They can add PvE all they want. They can add little arcade modes all they want, as long as it's not detrimental to the main game. As long as the main game is being taken care of. They didn't. They threw out the main game in favor of things like PvE missions. They thought, hey, let's not add new maps. Let's not, they did add a new game mode, mind you. Let's not add new game modes. Let's not revamp quick play, which they haven't done and still haven't done. It's the same thing as since the game launched, which people play all the fucking time when they aren't playing comp. Let's not revamp quick play mode or add a bunch of new heroes. Let's make a PvE game mode. And in doing so, they didn't even make a PvE game mode. It's not like Borderlands where you can replay it, like there's loot drops or anything. It is literally just a one and done. It's like a Telltale game, only not as good as a Telltale game. But that remains to be seen. Maybe the storyline is phenomenal. I kind of doubt it. I think they wanted to make Overwatch in the PvE universe, and that's not really like a story time, and that's not really, yeah, like with the Sojourn, I'm pretty sure, so like we've talked about this before, I'm pretty sure the CG department at Blizzard is for all their games, and they get a chance basically to allocate time with the CG department where they'll make a short for them, and they get to pick what they want the short to be about, and obviously the CG team kind of just does it, and they wasted a 6-minute CG that they put out like what, once every 2 years, a 6-minute CG once every 1 or 2 years on a true grit novel, like a crime novel, where we just had two people engaging each other in some sort of witty banter discussing the implications of Sojourn being a vigilante. And yeah, that's not really what you want for an esports, highly competitive esports shooter. Like, completely, the people that are doing this stuff are like completely detached from the game that they're making. Like, they don't seem to care that they're making Overwatch 2. They want to do whatever the fuck they want to do, and that's not what the game needs. The game needs to be an esports shooter, because that's what it is. That's a highly competitive esports shooter is what it is. It doesn't matter if you want to make Titan. Titan sailed years ago when they made Overwatch, and Overwatch 2 is still Overwatch. So they could say, well, we wanted to make Titan, so then they just fail at making Overwatch and try to make this like a hobble together a PvE game mode, which is probably just going to be like Star Watch or the Insurrection missions or whatever those were called, where you fought the battle bots. We're going to play it, as mentioned. Maybe it'll be great, but even if it's all right, this reminds me of something like, they spent maybe a year of time on. I don't know where the other 3 years of their development time went, but, whatever. This is what we now have for the game, so I guess. Illari looks pretty cool. Now we'll have to wait and see what she's like in the game. She has like a shock rifle, if you ever played Unreal. Yeah, solar rifle, so she basically can trade off like Baptiste, where she has a secondary mode on her gun, or like, not completely, but like Life Weaver. Yeah, she can dash, which is outburst, knocking back enemies, hold the jump to go higher, kind of like Baptiste fly too. Healing pylon, deploy a pylon that heals allies. These are little deployables on the ground or on the sides of stuff. Cap the sun. Fire an explosive ball of solar energy. Enemies hit are slowed after the explosion takes significant damage. I've seen it, and it doesn't look like they take significant damage, so either it has a really big drop-off from the center, or it's just not that good. That being said, she is really good and does a boatload of damage. Solar rifle does a shitload of damage. I'll have to wait and see, though. There's a lot of balancing changes here, though, guys. Let's get Charles in here.
Google Cloud Text-to-Speech enables developers to synthesize natural sound
is
speech
cool game
with
mechanic.
100+
There's a lot of
voices,
really
available in multiple languages and variants.
really cool mechanics.
It applies DeepMind's groundbreaking research in WaveNet and Google's powerful neural networks to deliver the highest fidelity possible.
Is someone on Kick changing my games? I swear to fucking God, I was in the Just Chatting category. Are they using AI to change categories? I was in Just Chatting. I put myself in Just Chatting, and now I'm in Overwatch 2. What the fuck? Like, I intentionally put myself in Just Chatting when I'm doing a podcast. Yeah, I swear to God, it said Just Chatting. But I'm going to change myself to the Overwatch 2 category, so people that care about it can see that we're talking about Overwatch 2. Swear to God, Kick just randomly changes my game categories. Fun. For funsies is what they do for funsies. Translocator? You mean where you could insta-give people with it? Sure. Right. Flashpoint. I haven't played Flashpoint. Barely looked at it. We'll see.
New game mode. Flashpoint is the newest core game mode available on 2 of the biggest maps to date, Suravasa and New Junk City. Gameplay begins with both teams pursuing a central objective called a flashpoint, aiming to capture it before the opposing team does. Capture progress for Flashpoint is like the control game mode, but plays out faster. A point is captured by a team once a flashpoint reaches 100% capture progress. If the flashpoint is being contested by a member of the opposite team currently not in control when the capture progress reaches 99%, overtime will activate until either the team in control can remove all remaining opponents off, or until the contesting team can retake control of the flashpoint. A point is scored when a flashpoint is fully captured by a team. However, gameplay continues when a new flashpoint located somewhere else on the map is activated, and both teams must immediately race to capture it. As additional flashpoints unlock, the spawn locations of each team will be of generally equal distance to the currently activated flashpoint. The team to be the first to successfully capture 3 of the 5 flashpoints wins the match. Flashpoint is available now in unranked modes and will be available for competitive play later this season.
So, possibly pretty interesting. Reminds me a lot of League of Legends had a circular game mode. I don't know if you guys remember that. Quite a while ago. In which you just go around, kind of like capture and hold too. But you don't really hold it because there isn't retaking, so they're trying to change it up into which points you go to, when you go to them, and the routes you'll take, and make things a little bit more dynamic in the middle of the match. What was it called? League of Legends circular map. Opinion. I believe you can't play this anymore. game at one point. And you take objectives around the side. And you can go through the center and attack each other and shit. But for the most part, it is a giant clusterfuck. There's also League of Legends 6v6. Of Legends player limit. Like some general knowledge. I haven't played League of Legends in forever. Five v 5. Yeah. Jungler, mid, top, support, and then AD carry. You gotta play that way. So much so that that meta has become basically part of how the game is picked. Like when you're picking characters, you have to pick it that way. Yeah, kind of interesting in and of itself how it's developed that way. There's just no other way to play the game. Anyways, this is a really big map, and as such, it felt like there really should have been more people on the team. I remember playing this and it felt really fucking empty. I don't believe this is in the game anymore. Disabled February 22nd, 2016. I don't know why they got rid of it, to be perfectly honest. You could still have a game mode and just not have it be something people normally play. They got rid of it. Kind of curious. Like, this could potentially have been actually pretty cool if it was like maybe 8v8 or maybe even 9v9. Like, there's a lot of room for more heroes in here, and they just didn't do it. Wouldn't want to do that. Anyways, Flashpoint kind of feels like the same way. It kind of looks like the game might be kind of empty, but we'll have to wait and see. Bigger maps aren't always better. In the case of BattleBit, for instance, they added some larger maps like District, and Wine isn't even that big. It's just cluttered with shit so you can't see people constantly. And multi-aisle, really fucking huge. You just don't see anyone, even though it's 127 versus 127. Running into people is very few and far between. So we'll have to wait and see how it goes, but like I said, it really feels like they need to increase the player count, and they aren't doing that. Like, you know, some game modes have more or less players, and that's all right, but they just don't, for some reason, want to do that. They has to be 5v5, because you can't do 6v6 anymore, obviously, because that's old news.
Invasion Story Missions. Players who purchase the Invasion bundle from the in-game shop can play in all new story missions with their friends or others in queue. These massive co-op experiences will have players face against the invading forces of Null Sector, who have launched an all-out global offensive. Play through all of them and unlock the Overwatch 2 hero Sojourn, along with her new Vigilante legendary skin. Players can access the story missions can be accessed through Winston's desk in the missions card in the play menu, where players can explore the story missions hub and new intel database. Playing missions and completing various goals will unlock lore entries, movies, never-before-revealed details about your favorite heroes and characters, and clues about the future of the world of Overwatch. So they just locked a bunch of easy-to-do shit.
So the incentive here to do this is, hey, look, you'll get a data entry. It's like the easiest to come by progression in a video game is where it unlocks a bestiary entry in your journal. Yeah. I guess that's replayability right there. Everyone wants to do that. Movies are kind of seen, kind of cool, but yeah. So just playing in the first place, not replayability, just playing in the first place. Okay. Limited time event, King's Row Underworld. King's Row Underworld.
New limited time event, King's Row Underworld. Stop Null Sector from taking over the Omnic Underworld in this new co-op event that's free to play for everyone. Reactivate a combat modified TS1 utility bot to aid in liberating endangered Omnics. But be warned, massive amounts of Null Sector forces have occupied King's Row. And that's not all. A powerful new support unit will be healing the deadly OR-14 attack bot in your path.
No.
Every week, we'll be adding new challenges and ways to play this new co-op event.
Yeah.
Keep checking back. The
So
King's Row
mutators?
Underworld event runs from August 10th to September 5th.
Yeah. Adding got to cater to that replayability. Once again, I don't know what the fuck they're doing with their game, guys. They're doing this instead of actually, making the normal game mode better. There are a lot of changes, which we're going to get to here in a second. But it feels like an awful lot like the changes they're doing is just for the sake of change. Like, they're just doing it to make things different. Which, I mean, isn't even that bad, but, very lackluster as opposed to constantly tailoring their base game. At least we got a new hero. Firing range?
Firing range. Train your aim with an all-new addition to the practice range. Use targets large and small, stationary and mobile, to perfect your crosshair tracking skills. Rack up points and strive to set the high score. Challenges.
So, kind of in lieu of the training range, you got a firing range now. It's kind of like Kovacs or whatever it is. But, I mean, we aren't playing Overwatch for that. But, nice if this was just added in addition to the base content all the time, right? And it wasn't. There was 4 years where this game didn't get anything, and then it released with a push game mode and a new hero. And you can say, oh, all the other new heroes are planned out, and they just had them ready to go. But they didn't really, because they were releasing them on a 4 month cycle? 3 month cycle? Yeah. So they definitely weren't available, like didn't have them finished when Overwatch 2 launched, otherwise they would have been included with Overwatch 2 launch. Was it 2 heroes or 1 hero? Overwatch 2 launch. It's actually 3. No, Kiriko definitely didn't release right at the beginning. Sojourn and Junker Queen. Kiriko is later. Let's see. Overwatch 2 hero release dates. They have a reveal date and release date. Sojourn was released with 22nd of April with the beta. Junker Queen was released on Overwatch PvP beta number 2. Kiriko was released on the 4th of October 2022, which is with the release of Overwatch 2. So they did stagger them, but they technically, I wouldn't consider these released with Overwatch 2. So from 14th of April in 2020, when Echo was released, they had 3 new heroes over the course of 2 years. Then Ramatra was released in December, so that's 3 months later. Then Lifeweaver was 4 months later in April. And Illari was in August, so that's even further. It is April to August, like 5 months? 4 months? Then Hero 39 is a tank and unannounced. Yeah, so, I don't really... How often does League of Legends release new heroes? They have an absolute shitload. They did like 12 in a year at one point. They even have now. It's like 150 or something. 164. Obviously, League of Legends has been out a lot longer, but and I haven't kept up in forever. Release date. Nefari was released this year on the 7th. That would be July. Then the 3rd, so March, was Milio. Then November last year was Cassante. It was like every 4 months. 3 to 4 months. No, 4 months-ish. Nila was on July. Prior year, Belveth was in June. Then February was Renata. Then January was Zuri. So they released them really fucking fast. Either way, there's like 2 years where there's just no new hero in Overwatch 2. That would be longer than that. 3 years where they just didn't have new heroes because at the end of November or October. Half years. They just had 3 new heroes released for their game. That's like one year per hero, like 8 months per hero. Which is way too slow. Like, in order to keep people interested, it's like having new weapons. In order to keep people interested, guys, you have to keep pounding out the heroes. You gotta pound those heroes. Anyways, new firing range, I guess, there's that. They decided to do that. You know, people probably could use some new maps right about now. And there are technically new maps for their new game mode. One of the biggest problems, as I mentioned with this game, one of the biggest issues with the game is quick play. And it's not that quick play exists, it's rather that quick play is incredibly stressful for something that's supposed to be a game mode where you relax and unwind. And you can have competitive all you want, but at the end of the day, when people want to unwind, they don't want to play a shitty version of competitive. So I discussed this, and I've talked about this before. Basically, since when Overwatch 1 launched, which is just to give it the Team Fortress 2 treatment. So you have maybe 8v8 or 10v10 players on the same maps, just make the objectives take longer, so everything takes longer, progress is slower, everything takes longer, make it more of a meat grinder, and then you make it so people can play duplicate heroes too on top of it. Obviously, there's still going to be a TDS because now the game is balanced around TDS, so you have to have a TDS ratio, TDS being tank, DPS, and support. So you have to make a ratio of heroes to each other, regardless of how many you have. So maybe 2 tanks, 4 DPS, and 3 healers, for instance. You could do something like that. There's a lot of ways of playing around it, but, you know, whatever ratio might be, because you have to balance it out, right? But they don't. Something where you can just chill out with your friends and have nonsensical enjoyment, even if it's not competitive. They've had new challenges, Overwatch coins, requirements updated, challenges for invasion missions. On fire, so they've adjusted the on fire system. It always felt like the on fire system's like a joke now. Everyone is on fire all the fucking time. Increased minimum blazing time to 10 seconds, so you can't be on fire as long. Added 3-second cooldown to prevent sound effect from playing too frequently. The visual effects for blazing have been enhanced, okay. I guess it's still just as frequent. It is very easy to be on fire, which makes it seem like a joke compared to Overwatch 1 when you're on fire is a really meaningful thing. You could use it as a way of figuring out who's actually doing the best in the game and needs to be taken care of. And you can't now. Ping system, change Symmetra's personal teleporter pings to work like Illari. Okay. Being Plateau platform, so these bug fixes, health packs. Text chat, unfiltered setting for all text chat has been removed. Players will have a choice of chat settings between friendly and mature. Yeah. Mature doesn't necessarily mean it's unfiltered. Unfiltered implies that there's no filtering at all. So this might actually be a change where they have filtered mature chat. Okay. Well, there's that. Regardless of text chat filter setting, please continue to report people using inappropriate chat. This I don't agree with. People should not be penalized for having uncensored chat and people typing bad things in uncensored chat. That's why you have an uncensored chat, and if you don't like that, don't turn off uncensored chat. It's not the rest of the world's problem that you don't like what people say. For the most part. This is when you get the really nasty shit, that's different. But when you're being toxic, which is completely subjective depending on who's talking to who, I don't even talk in the game anymore because it's not worth talking to people that have this. Just like it's like literally playing subterfuge with people where they just try to stab you with daggers and like say like little quips at you, just like passive aggressive quips, so that they won't actually get moderated or otherwise be actioned upon, just to make you just basically flip out and say bad shit, and then you get your chat removed. Yeah. It's literally a system that is now designed to help people that basically abuse it, and that's not where you want to be. I have no problems with people being toxic. You just block them, you just mute them or block them, as long as they aren't saying some really, really bad shit. Like, I don't care. People, the world is not nice to you. It's not always nice, and you just block them. You ban them. That's what I do in my chat. If people are being assholes and they know they're being assholes and they continue to be assholes, you tell them to stop being assholes, and they still do it. You kick them out. Like, there's no reason to deal with that shit anymore. There's absolutely no reason. So. Why people think that other people should be responsible for what they find offensive, I don't know, but that's the world we live in now. So I don't agree with this. I've mentioned this before. If you choose to have an uncensored chat, people getting around a censorship is bad. So if someone's using specific ways of changing the characters in a word so that you see the word when you don't want to see the word, that, of course, that's something that could be actionable upon. But if you personally have censored chat setting and someone else is saying something mean to you, yeah, block them or just move on with your life. It doesn't fucking matter. The number of wins required, so top 500, if you guys weren't aware, Yezna apparently got like top 10 spots in Europe on the leaderboard last season, and that ruffled a lot of feathers, as it should, because he basically made disposable accounts and then abused the fast level up system. So when you have a new account and the game is trying to place you, it will be a little bit more fluid with your positioning, so you don't need to play as many games. So he just abused the fuck out of that and basically made a bunch of disposable accounts trying to RNG into the top 10, which he did. And then he had all top 10 places. Good for him. They increased it from 25 to 50. Once again, this is mainly because there's no rating. What's it called? Finishing. Your elo does not degrade over time. So your positioning, you don't need to play a number of games per week in order to maintain your positioning, which is dumb. Because there should be a system in which you have to keep playing in order to actually maintain a rank, because you can't say this person's number 1 and this person's number 5 if these guys never interact with each other or no one ever interacts with anyone around them. That is a closed system and does not represent an actual ranking between the different players. So at the end of the day, like, they have to, in a competitive system, they actually have to have players play against each other, and if they don't, then they should obviously be put back out of top 500 until they actually decide to play the game again, because just RNGing into a top position and then sitting there, squatting there is dumb. It's really fucking dumb. And this is not going to change it. Just have to play 50 games now. I mean, that's a thing, but it's definitely not addressing the problem. The game itself does not have a real elo system, i.e. people have different elo scores, and when you play against them, you steal basically their elo, and you give them elo, or get your elo taken away from you. And depending on the scoring weighted against each other determines how much or how little people go up the tier, up the list. Overwatch 2 is generally just based off rank and maybe some weighted system in the background based on your performance in the actual game, which they say doesn't exist, but you can clearly see people going up and down regardless of them winning or losing in top 500. And it's not just purely based off of wins and losses. Anyways, yeah, they don't actually have a real competitive system, and that's a lot of problem with the game itself. Is the MMR is very broken. Games are highly swing, and one of the problems I believe that deals with this, one of the things that's causing this, is that is cheating. Because when people cheat, it will highly skew. Imagine someone playing like a gold, and then all of a sudden they're playing like a top 500 or GM, more than likely like a GM. Comparably, it'll really fuck with the MMR system, because the MMR doesn't know what to do with them, because they're pushing a button on their keyboard that changes their MMR. Basically changes their MMR, the games are going to be unbalanced. That is a lot to do. The MMR system is broke in in and of itself outside of cheating, but cheating also is very, very prevalent in Overwatch. Ever since Overwatch 2 launched, it's only gotten worse. Where the last couple days I've been playing, it haven't been that bad, but it's been like one person per game will report. One person per game will report. People cheat in quick play, they cheat in comp. It's just the way the world works now. Blizzard doesn't actually go out of their way to address that, unfortunately. Maybe in the future, anti-cheat is a long ways to go. It's kind of weird. Like I've mentioned this before. We've talked about AnyBrain, which is one of the first AI anti-cheats. Whether or not it does a good job remains to be seen. But anyways, they had an article where they talked about the like a test case for it, and they mentioned that I forgot who they're working with, but the company they're working with, they were able to eliminate cheaters to, what is it called? The allocated cheaters to... They eliminated all the cheaters to the point at which the developers thought people weren't cheating anymore. And what that entails is if the system is detecting people and they're listing them as cheating, the developers saying no, they're not cheating. And the reason they're saying no, they aren't cheating isn't because they're catching them or not catching them like with an internal system, but rather they think that those players no longer cheat. So if you have a game like Overwatch 2 in which like high MMR players like on Twitch for instance, possibly a lot of them are cheating, and then all of a sudden your system detects these guys are cheating and you decide not to ban them because of the PR fallout of it, would you or wouldn't you ban them because of the PR fallout? And it looks like we're now starting to get to the point where game developers may actually have to start making choices on whether or not they're actually banning people that are known throughout the community, because like they're so encrusted and so ingrained in the community that they can't actually deal with them anymore. Like they can't deal with banning them, which is kind of a sad place to be, but also kind of where we are now. Yeah, I don't know, like even if AI anti-cheat comes around and it becomes a big deal, NVIDIA has their new thing coming out too, which is, and I don't think they even have a name for it. They have some new tools coming out for detecting aimbots with AI processing, I believe it is. And I read an article on that maybe a week ago. There wasn't a lot of substance there and nothing from NVIDIA beyond them just mentioning it briefly. So I don't know if that's going to be good or not, but NVIDIA is actually a major player, so maybe it might be something good. We'll have to wait and see on that though. Hopefully. Anyways, on to the actual meat and potatoes of this. You know, everything is all fun and games until you get to the balancing changes. So... here are updates. Armor health damage reduction is now additive with other sources of damage reduction as a maximum cap of 50%. They did that because certain people were going over the top of the cap and creating confusing situations. I believe League of Legends did this at one point with Armor Pen, because the Armor Pen was extremely obtuse. It was incredibly difficult to, like, for an average person to figure out what exactly is going on with the game and how much armor pen they need. I still think it's relatively complicated, but once again, I haven't played League of Legends in forever. It used to be very complicated. Armor system in Overwatch 2 was also relatively complicated. Like it did, I believe it originally did, helped with, you would take less damage from small damage numbers, but relatively normal amounts of damage the bigger the number is. I don't know exactly how it worked. I still never figured it out up until when they changed it to a damage reduction effect. Yeah, that was fucking weird, but at least it was more of a... Armor's always one of these weird things where you have to make it somewhat different than a shield, right? Different than a shielding. So usually people take a percentage of damage through it, or an algorithmic curve as far as damage goes, which is what Overwatch 2 originally was. Where you fall depends on the amount of damage you're doing and the amount of how much damage each shot will do, basically. So Soldier will have a bigger damage reduction than, let's say, a Pharah rocket, because a Pharah rocket's 120 and Soldier's shot is like 40 or something, 30. Maybe it's 16. It's something relatively low. Or tracer pistols, for instance. They changed that, which I didn't completely agree with when they did that, because it makes armor more like just a shield now, so. Yeah. Anyways, they changed it now so it's all additive, so it's easier to understand and parse. D.Va, like I said, a lot of these changes here, guys, before we get into this, a lot of these changes feel like knee-jerk reactions, and we're going to talk about why this feels like a knee-jerk reaction, and not necessarily, like, just changing stuff for the state, not even knee-jerk. Just changing things for the sake of changing things so it's different. And we'll talk a little bit about why this is the case. So, D.Va, her boosters cooldown reduced from 4 to 3.5 seconds, so as a 1.5 second reduction. I don't think I've ever thought, wow, D.Va really needs to have a booster reduction. I don't think anyone has ever thought this in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, some of these changes feel an awful lot like they're just changing stuff to change stuff. So now she can boost more often, I guess. Pilot damage now immune for 0.4 seconds while ejecting. This gives D.Va time to reposition herself and move around. Tanks in general, I never really thought needed buffing, but like I said, I think they're just trying to shake things up here. So this allows her to be saved now. After she bails out, like with a grab from Life Lever, for instance, or an immune, or some sort of effect from a healer, where she might get insta-gibbed originally. And I guess this adds some survivability to D.Va in her pilot form. Although there's a lot of ways they could have made it so she can stay alive longer. If you guys ever played Heroes of the Storm, I still think Heroes of the Storm was basically a MOBA 2.0. D.Va, when she was out of mech in Heroes of the Storm, well, still, when she's out of mech in Heroes of the Storm, you could unlock her abilities, and what her abilities would give her pistol the ability to concuss people away. Not that all these effects should be in the game. It gave her, I forgot what it's called, but they have names for it. It gave her pistol the ability to concuss people away when she was out of mech. It gave her a torpedo dash, was what it was called, which allowed her to basically dash a short distance. And I believe there's one other one. I believe there's one other ability which isn't really all that important. I think it was a roll or something. No, maybe not a roll. She'd still die, but at least she had some more survivability. D.Va functioned a little bit different in Heroes of the Storm compared to Overwatch 2. All the heroes do, which is they did their own unique take on them. D.Va, for instance, when she was in pilot mode, her pistol it was a laser. So every time she shot, it would hit people in a row. And you could also do other things, like you could unlock a 3-shot, so it would do a 3-round burst. But she would shoot in a line, and every time she hit people, it would reduce the cooldown of her mech. So when people are lining up, it gave you the ability to kite people and then basically pistol them with torpedo dash and the push away. And then you would laser them, and then you could get your mech faster and you could actually remech. In Overwatch 2, you're almost always fucked. And like I said, I think the game itself actually did a great disservice to itself when there was a giant outcry when Doomfist was released. Old Doomfist, not new one. Because people got angry that they ran down a hallway and got, like, literally anal fisted. Like, they ran into the large grunting man in a hallway. You can hear him from miles away just charging up his fist going, ah, ah, ah. And then they walk into the hallway and they get one shot and they're like, oh my god, Doomfist is so OP. No, you're just a fucking idiot. And ever since then, everyone's like, no, let's not, we shouldn't have heroes that stun and do MOBA things. Let's have heroes that just, like, click faces. That's great. Like, they want to play Counter-Strike, only we're playing Overwatch 2. I don't find Counter-Strike enjoyable in any way, shape, or form anymore. It used to be. It was fun. I played it for years. But it's just not engaging enough. And I don't want to play, like, Counter-Strike. And they just want to play a hero where you literally, all you do is play Kovacs. All you do is play Kovacs in the game, where you click a spot on the screen and you win the game. And instead of being able to process mechanics and different things that happen around them and work around it, thinking with their 3-dimensional brain about these things that are happening around these characters, they're like, no, I just want to shoot a pixel and win the game. Like Soldier 7, every character has to be a Soldier 76. And that is boring as fuck. And as I mentioned before, like, the game did a huge disservice where it basically went back on itself because the esports kids all thought the game should be Kovacs. And that's fucking stupid. It really, really is. Because D.Va, for instance, when she's out of mech, and possibly healing wouldn't be as OP as it is right now if people had more means to manipulate the game around themselves. So if D.Va had a torpedo dash, if D.Va had the ability to push people away, if D.Va could remech by hitting a bunch of people in a line with a laser pistol, those are all things people can work around, and she can actually use to manipulate and show that she's actually capable of doing more as a character, right? The player has the ability to express themselves in the game. And you can't do that because it doesn't exist, so then you basically, when you bail out of your mech, you're basically fucked. And so you either have to make the mech really powerful, give her a way to get away, which is this shit, or another way to get away, which is the healers can now save her, instead of giving D.Va herself the ability to try and save herself. And like I said, I think after Doomfist, after when he was introduced and there's this giant backlash from the community themselves, gamers, like, you obviously have to take feedback from gamers. But there are a lot of people in the community, guys, there's a lot of streamers that have no fucking idea what they're doing, and oftentimes they'll meme. They go to the Twitter consensus, they figure out what the Twitter consensus says, and then they just meme that. They'll just go, oh guys, look, Roadhog is so fucking OP because he throws a hook and one-shots you. Meanwhile, Widowmaker has been running around since fucking forever, in which she basically just one-shots you from across the map and you fall over. But the Twitter consensus was saying, oh, it's Roadhog. Oh, it's Roadhog since Overwatch 2 launch. Oh, it's Roadhog. Got a new nerf Roadhog, guys. Oh no, another giant grunting man. You can see him barreling, hear his chains just barreling as he's going to throw a hook at you. And you're like, maybe I shouldn't dodge right now, you know? And that is, once again, Roadhog had a mechanic, he had a setup, and it was telegraphed, meaning you could see it happening in real time, in which you can do different things to try and save yourself. You know what Widow does? You walk into the open and die. And like I said, here you have Kovacs, which is the Widowmaker. You just walk on the open and die. We're like, hey guys, look how powerful Widowmaker is, as you should be, because I just shoot my laser rifle and everyone dies. Wow, that's so amazing. And you have an ability and a bunch of mechanics that you have to use to set up, which was Roadhog. And not to say, once again, that one-shots are, you know, one-shots are the end-all be-all and everything should have one shot, but rather Roadhog had specific scenarios he set up in order to kill you. And people flipped out about Roadhog and then completely forgot about the character. Obviously, it's changed now, but completely forgot about the character that just one-taps you from across the map over and over and over again with very little expense to herself and insane range. And people were flipping out about Roadhog. That is the Twitter consensus balancing, guys, and that's why it's not always good, and that's why you shouldn't always listen to it. Widowmaker had a lot of problems, and getting one shot for a Widowmaker, especially nowadays, which it seems like either people have gotten really, really fucking good, or there's a lot more cheating, which I would say it's actually the latter rather than the former, because video games have been out for decades, and it's not like all of a sudden people have gotten, like, are going to be much better now at video games compared to what they were like a decade ago. It's not really the way that it works, but, you know, I guess you could like to think that way. But yeah, Widowmaker just walking out in the open and insta-gibbing like teammates. A little bit different than Roadhog doing that. And people flipped out over Roadhog rather than Widowmaker. They eventually went, after I said it for months, people finally went, hey, maybe we should talk about Widowmaker just insta-killing people on our team. Like, people just forgot Widowmaker existed, and while they're all falling over dead. And very, very weird. Anyways, like, this is the Doomfist treatment, guys. This is where they decided after Doomfist and after the Kovacs fucks decided that everything in the game has to be a laser rifle, that we just aren't going to give people mechanics and actual things that work in the game. Like, League of Legends has a shitload of mechanics. Depending on which character you're playing, some are much more complicated than others. MOBAs in general have a shitload of mechanics. Heroes of the Storm has a shitload of mechanics. And instead of having this mechanical knowledge, which you have in addition to actual skill, like clicking, they just went straight to clicks, and it's just clicking, right? That's not fun. Counter-Strike is not fun, despite what the kids might say. It's not enjoyable anymore. But they did a great disservice to the game, and now they're still suffering backlash, where you have this D.Va character, where when she's unmech'd, you know, you don't have a D.Va form, which could be another form of the character that you can actually play. She's basically dead. And honestly, that's not all that interesting. But, you know, D.Va in general is a very strong character. Not saying she isn't, just in general. But they could have had two forms with her. Instead, they have one form. Anyways, now they're trying to duct tape up her form when she's out of mech, which is give her more survivability, which is her boosters here, and 0.4 seconds will eject you, neither of which I think she needed. But I think there's an overall picture here we need to see after we get through all the patch notes, because there are a lot of them. Doomfist, Seismic Slam, so they buffed him a bit. Cooldown reduced from 7 to 6 seconds. This is how Doomfist do a lot of tech in addition to getting away, so he got buffed. His power block had I would say it's a bug. This is not a buff. Now reduces damage from stuck projectiles. Stuck projectiles are Cassidy's McCree's grenade, or things like Tracer's bomb, which, you know, now I think he can survive now. He could survive before if he's at full health. Anyways, so there it looks like they're giving slight buffs to tanks, so he has more survivability. Stuck projectiles, which is actually just kind of a bug. Orisa, she got a buff to her mouse 1, which she didn't need, but once again, I think the needs and the pros and cons here, I think, might be changing. They might be changing the direction, which we'll have to wait and see. So she got a buff to her mouse 1. It got an even bigger buff to her Fortify, some more survivability. Ramatra also gets the stuck projectile buff, as Doomfist did. Ultimate cost increased by 12%, so he got a nerf to his ultimate, which apparently is too oppressive. This is what the kids right now are bitching about Ramatra, as well as Monkey. The two ones that they bitch about right now is Ramatra and Monkey. Monkey is played heavily in Overwatch League, and there's a meme about it, and the reason the Twitter consensus knows about it, I guess the X consensus, the reason the Twitter consensus knows about Monkey is because someone parsed the Overwatch Live games, and they found out the majority of the Overwatch Live games included Monkey in almost all of the picks. It was like 50% of the picks were Monkey. It does not happen that way in competitive, but that's the way it is. Ramatra, on the other hand, is played a decent amount, and he's a strong tank, but I wouldn't say he's the only tank you can play in the game. So I don't think he needs nerfs. The Twitter consensus thinks that he needed a nerf, which is why his Annihilation got another nerf. So not everything's buffed here. Still increases survivability a little bit. Sigma. Base movement ground deceleration increased to match standard hero movement. So they took out, I guess, some game knowledge, which is the character plays slightly differently than other tanks. Oh, it was a bug. So he doesn't take the same amount of... he takes more CC damage because he's floating. The game actually calculates him as floating instead of being on the ground. Physics are different. There was a thing where someone on Twitter or Reddit posted a video where they're comparing CC effects to Sigma, and he actually just takes more CC effects. So they changed that. Winston, this is the Twitter consensus, did they win? Secondary fire charge time reduced from 1.2 to 1 second, so you got a buff to secondary fire. Secondary fire recovery time increased from 0.5 to 0.75. So they didn't listen to the Twitter consensus on this one. His secondary fire got buffed. His secondary fire has kind of been just a way to finish people off, so that's not really that big of a deal. And they made it so it does less DPS, because you recover, takes longer to recover. So overall, you lose 0.05 seconds. No, you gain. No, you lose. So you lose. It charges faster from 1.2 to 1, so 0.2. And then it recovers longer from 0.5 to 0.75. So you still lose 0.05 as far as DPS goes, which is 5%. Which probably still doesn't matter because his Tesla cannon doesn't really do that much damage anyways. Bastion got a huge buff. Let's see. He is a fat boy. If you get a DPS on Bastion that basically has an aimbot, he does a shitload of work though. I don't know why people don't play him more. Tank busters that we've talked about on my stream are actually a really big deal. Bastion's a tank buster, Reaper's a tank buster, Symmetra is a tank buster, Pharah can be a tank buster with her Q. But there's a lot of things now to save people, so not really, because a healer will just jump in and probably save the tank. Depends heavily on people being out of position in order to make use, otherwise you'll die in the middle of the ult. Why you'll oftentimes see me never use ult on Pharah. But anyways, tank busters actually have a position. Almost no casters talk about tank busters. Tactical grenade, maximum explosion damage fall off reduced from 70 to 50%. Detonation time reduced from 0.5 to 0.35. Recoil adjusted to recover more quickly. Projectile size increased from 0.2 to 0.25. I believe this is a sticky grenade too, so it can stick to you. Impact damage increased from 15 to 30. So overall buffed. Rather than making this faster, would have been nice if they just increased the damage of it, but I guess they didn't want to do that. So grenade buff. His recon, which is a shitty Soldier 76, has been improved. So this should raise his overall DPS 1.5 to 1.2 seconds. Transforming into his tank mode, now repairs 50 armor. Which is useful. Still not the same thing as his right click where he used to be able to repair himself. Increase the speed of his artillery, so this, I believe this is how fast he can move around with the targeting reticule. 3, base health increased from 200 to 225. He did not need that. They nerfed his damage fall off. It used to be 25 to 45 to reach maximum fall off. Now it's 25 to 35. 3 is very powerful. People say he's not, but he definitely is. It's usually the hit scan players that say he's not good. Then the Ash is not good, and then Soldier 76 is good, but that's Soldier 76. And then they proceed to play McCree and then Ash. So proof is in the pudding, guys. Just look at what people are doing. And if they're doing that and then doing it well, it probably means they don't need buffs. Anyways, I believe McCree had 225 at one point, and they nerfed it to 200. Now he's back to 225, which I don't think he needed. But apparently Blizzard thought so. Nerfed the magnetic grenade, which it was definitely nerfed from his original aimbot grenade, which was insane. His missile grenade. Maximum travel time of 1.5 seconds. You can't throw it as far. You can also use it for aerial explosion now. This does not mention whether or not this is after it locks on or before. I assume this is before. Slow amount reduced from 30 to 25%. That's almost nothing. It's not really going to matter. So McCree was buffed. A little bit of damage fall off nerf. 35 meters in the game is actually pretty far. Hanzo. Slight nerf to his tech, which is drawing an arrow before climbing a wall, so it doesn't preserve it. They made it more intuitive for players that didn't understand the tech, which is he saves your draw progress when you climb a wall. 76. Helix rockets reduced. That's not what he needed. His mouse 1 is insanely fucking OP, guys, and it looks like they're not addressing it. As I mentioned before, we've talked about Blizzard does not admit they're wrong. They will walk back changes slowly over time, and you'll have to just deal. Like, as basically in a year from now, maybe they'll touch his mouse 1. In a year from now, they'll touch his mouse 1. There's a boatload of patches here, guys. I'm going to watch my coffee cup out and grab a soda. I'll be right back. 1 second. Ready. Let's keep going, guys. Oh. Okay, so as I mentioned before, Blizzard doesn't admit it, they're wrong. They just... A year from now, we'll actually see a nerf to the ability. Like with Sojourn, she needed to have her railgun damage reduced, and they just kept reducing her mouse 1 and changing her mouse 1. And that's not needed. Alt cost increased by 10%, but when basically... I run it as Farah, guys. I run into a lot of people that are not any more accurate when they're using their visor compared to when they are using their visor. So, yeah... You can change this all you want. That's not the problem with this character. So, that's his ult has cost increased by 10%. Sombra. Ultimate cost increased by 15%. No longer destroys Lifeweaver's Tree of Life. I mean, to be perfectly honest, that's probably one of the best things about Sombra was when she just explodes. She just explodes Lifeweaver's Tree of Life. I mean, why is he immune? There's a lot of heroes. I mean, it's disheartening when it happens. There are a lot of heroes that get fucked by Sombra. So why particularly does Lifeweaver, who's a healer, not get fucked by Sombra? Good question. Torbjorn. Reduce weapon swap time between his forge and rivet. I think they're trying to make it so he does a little bit. I swear his turret got buffed. Maybe I've seen that somewhere else. Torbjorn making it where he can swap between weapons more fluidly, between his hammer and his rivet gun to keep his turret up. There's no way. It doesn't matter. Like the moment I see his turret, it basically eats 3 rockets instead. There's no way he can fix it. The turret is basically a one and done. You deploy it, and then maybe if it survives, you repair it. I don't know why Blizzard thinks this is going to change that, but it did. Swing recovery time reduced from 0.75 to 0.6, so it swings faster. That also means DPS Torb, Hammer Torb might actually be viable. Let's see what the DPS is in Hammer Torb. Which is a meme when you get hammered. Point 6. Does 55 damage. No, it's actually still really shit. It takes like 1 second per 55. That's not... that's not good. Okay, no, he's not any more viable. They're trying to make it so he actually repairs his turret. That's not going to happen. Anna. Anna's extremely powerful. And has been for a long time. Damage and healing per projectile reduced from 75 to 70. Oh no, they undid a nerf or a buff. Wow. So it used to be 70, I believe, and then they buffed it to 75. Now it's getting nerfed back to 70. It's still not going to matter. He basically 3-taps most things, so... this could stop her from 2-tapping Tracer. But most heroes are 200 HP to begin with, so it's still going to be a 3-tap. Unscope projectile size increased from 0 to 0.1. Holy shit. So she actually got buffed. That means her hipfire is going to be much more on. Her projectiles have always had a larger size for allies. She didn't need the buff. That's, like, she got a partial nerf here, which I don't think is going to matter. and then she got a buff. So, yeah, well, it's kind of give and take. I don't know if this is actually going to change much of anything. Bridget, her barrier got a nerf. Very tanky. Ultimate cost increased from 6%. I don't really think it's going to change much, but I guess we'll wait and see. Bridget's very, very tanky right now, especially when her ultimate pops, so. Kiriko. Bridget's a wait and see. Kiriko. They removed the knockback. They increased the they reduced the healing. And now it heals for more when cleansing a negative effect. So more likely to save people compared to what it already is. Because it needed to do that. Protection Suzu is probably the most OP ability in the game. No, actually I would say... Yeah, no, I'd say it's the most OP ability in the game. It's a choice between that and Biotic Grenade. Biotic Grenade does 4 things. It heals, it does damage, it increases healing, and it stops healing from happening on enemies, obviously. Protection Suzu does a bunch of different things too. Mainly it gives you invulnerability for 0.8 seconds, I believe it is. It used to be 1 second, which is insane because that's like the majority of someone's ult. Instead now it is like 0.8 or something. And it gives you healing on top of the fact that it also cleanses off abilities. Abilities, depending on what they are actually really, really, really powerful. Like you need to like debuffs, or sometimes you die. Like some abilities, if you get hit by them, you just die. If you get stuck, for instance, in Zarya's ult. Mei's ult. Yeah, like, because Mei's hard enough to hit with her ult anyways, and you just can undo someone's ult. Like, cleansing in and of itself, regardless of the vulnerability, was insane, and then they just, I guess they had to buff it for some reason. Kunai damage increased from 40 to 45. Recovery time reduced from 0.5 to 0.55 to 0.5. The critical damage reduced by 3 to 2.5. So she got buffed to her DPS, but less likely to insta-give people. I mean, it's only... She had the highest multiplier in the game. Widow is 2.5. She has a 3x multiplier on a kunai's, which was the difference between 120 and 40 damage, which is insane. Considering what she will do is just literally just throw at your hitbox and over and over and over again, and either try to 2-tap you after hitting your head or melee, depending on what character you're playing. And then if she just fucks up, she just teleports out, which is... That's a very good assassin right there. And instead, now they've changed it a little bit, so she's less likely to insta-give you instead, especially long range, but she fires faster by 10%. And then they buffed her damage by about 10% as well. So 20% buff to her DPS, her standard DPS, and lowered her headshot multiplier by 0.5. Would that be 110? 100. Now she does 100 instead of 110. Can 2-tap you now if she gets double headshots with the projectile. And projectiles have a hitbox, so it makes it actually easier to hit, depending on the kind of projectile and what it's doing. That makes it easier to hit compared to a normal headshot. Maybe, maybe not. Because the way she works right now is they'll strafe back and forth. 2 people will strafe back and forth against each other. Like back and forth like this. And she'll just throw at your head box at your head level. And, well, it seems like, oh, you just click faces. Depending on what's going on in close quarters, it's much easier to land a projectile doing that than it would be just to shoot someone's face like a McCree. Double headshot someone's face in close quarters. So, I don't know if this is a buff or a nerf. This might just be different. She can still 2-tap you if she double headshots. And she can do it easier now because her reload speed's lower. Is this reload speed? Recovery time. I believe it's reload speed. It's the time between throws. Overwatch. Yes, it is. It's rate of fire. Yeah, so I'm not sure. They just did stuff to her. Pretty sure her Suzu got buffed. Her kunais are maybe indifferent right now. She needed a nerf to headshot damage. This isn't really a nerf. 0.5 is not really a nerf. Lifeweaver. Reduction in base health. That doesn't really matter much because it's 200 to 175. It'll make him more vulnerable. He got a buff to health because now he has a shield. 50 HP shield, so now he's at 225. They mentioned this before with stats when they released him, guys. He was actually has one of the highest survivability out of any hero in the game, out of any healer in the game. He has the highest survivability, and they buffed his survivability again because of his pedal platform and dash. Use the spread for 1 of 2 thorn volley projectiles fired per shot. How many fire per shot? By 25%, so more accurate. Dash now gives him 50 HP. They increase mobility, lockout, and life grip so people can't actually just fly away too easy. Or just move away too easily from you. Not sure I needed that. 3 of life now gives overhealing. Okay, because it needed that. Like, the thing about him is, like, he does a lot of healing, guys. He's always done a lot of healing. He's able to get away, and he does a shitload of healing. It's just as it turns out, because the way the MMR... This is one of the shitty things about, like, having bad stats, guys, is they have... All their data is based on their shitty MMR. So if their MMR system, they have people all over the place, putting aside the cheaters, they have people all over the MMR when they should be a top or lower MMR than they actually are. Or all over the place. And then when you have a character that is very much team-oriented, like he's heavily dependent on his team, because he can't really do damage at all. Like, Lifeweaver can't really do any damage at all. He's heavily team-dependent. If you have DPS or a tank that sucks... he's going to suffer. He's going to suffer a lot. However, if you have tanks or DPS that are really good, he'll actually do really good because he's dependent on them, and he actually can buff them immensely because he does a lot of healing once again. So, yeah, like, at the end of the day, if you have a MMR system in which it pairs bad players with good players because it's not very good, you're going to have very conflicting data, and then a character that might actually be very good because he actually he does a shitload of healing. He does a boatload of healing. Like, he looks like he's bad when he is actually not. And that's particularly because you have to do off DPS because your DPS and the tank might not be doing their job properly because they aren't actually good. Yeah, and it leads to a weird scenario where you have a character that actually does not, in stats, does not underperform, but doesn't win as much as he should, and that's particularly because he's getting paired with shitters, and he can't carry as well. He has to depend on people. Playing Heroes of the Storm, guys, playing a MOBA, one of the most frustrating jobs in the world was playing a healer. Especially playing a healer that's just pure healing. Even if you do a shitload of healing, if you're playing with characters, you're playing with people that aren't good, it's like healing zombies. You can heal them as much as you want. They'll survive pretty much everything, but they just make all the wrong choices, and they can't do the damage to back it up. So what I'd oftentimes do, because in Heroes of the Storm there's like dailies and you have to play basically healers on occasion, what I'd oftentimes do is I'd play a healer that can also do DPS too, because you have to. You have to be capable of doing both. Because people aren't always good at what they do. Lifeweaver doesn't really do any off damage though, and that's basically what he suffers from, is his inability to off damage. And while you can give him off damage, which is what they're doing right here with the Thorn Volley, and they're increasing his survivability, which he didn't need, well, you can give them off DPS. It doesn't fix the root of the problem, which is the MMR system is broken. Let's see here. Lucio. Currently, he had a healing penalty during crossfade that they removed. Lucio in general is not, he's not on the top of the A game as far as healing goes. A good Lucio can do really well. A lot of Lucios aren't very good, though. And here is the Twitter consensus nerf to Mercy, which is she does need nerfs, and this is not it. Secondary fire damage boost reduced from 30 to 25. She doesn't need nerfs to her healing or damage boosts. She needs nerfs to her survivability. She has insanely good survivability, even outside her Q. And that's what she needs nerfs to, and they didn't change that. Instead, they're like, well, people are complaining about secondary fire damage boosts. Let's reduce it from 30 to 25. That's going to change almost nothing. This is a Twitter consensus nerf. Co-op mode hero updates. This is weird. Why is this in the middle here? With the introduction of Overwatch 2, invasion story missions will have specific hero balance changes for multiple heroes to ensure players have continuous challenges. No longer gain ultimate charge over time. Cost increase in co-op game modes. So are these all co-op related buffs and nerfs now? I don't think so. I think these are just normal buffs and nerfs. No, this is co-op hero. Secondary fire now changed up to 4 additional nearby enemies. Yeah, so these are all buffs to co-op game mode. So this is basically it for the normal patch notes. This is all for co-op. Yeah, so they just buffed a lot of the characters for co-op. I thought there's a lot of changes to a lot of characters. There's not. Nope. So this is all specific to co-op maps. They need to change the color or something, or say like co-op after the tank. Co-op after Winston. Not going to go through these because it's just co-op mode and it doesn't matter. We're going to skip through that, guys. Map updates. Junk City. This is for the new game mode, Flashpoint. Yep. We'll have to wait and see. Lighting for Season 6. Queen Street Dawn, Coliseum morning, night, morning, night, morning, evening. Yes, not a huge fan of the stylish updates to Overwatch 2. The stylization of Overwatch 2 compared to Overwatch 1. It makes it more difficult to see and follow people, which I do not enjoy. We have a highly competitive esports shooter, guys. People should not be making sacrifices for their ability to see players based on, hey, look, it's morning or night now. Maybe if this is BattleBit, you know, maybe this is in BattleBit. Bug fixes. Okay. Not going to go through the bug fixes. All right, so overall consensus here, I thought maybe it sounded like they're just going to like completely revamp things. It's not the case. Half these changes are for co-op mode, doesn't matter. Lifeweaver got buffs to things that he didn't need. And at the end of the day, I think the takeaway there is the MMR system is more broken, and they're trying to balance around the MMR system being broken now. As far as changes go, though, some tanks, I guess they're trying to make some tanks more lucrative compared to other tanks like Orisa now, which didn't really need it. It definitely feels like some of these changes are just knee-jerk, or just change for the sake of changing them. Doomfist wasn't insanely OP to begin with, so the seismic change is useful. Diva, once again, she doesn't really have the ability to save herself, so now she has a little bit of the ability for healers to save her. And boosters, which she didn't need. They said this is the biggest change ever, and I guess it's just Illari and new game mode and co-op. And co-op's a one and done scenario, so Bastion also. We got a health buff. Soldier 76 got nerfed, but not in the right way. Yeah, not really. Anna got a slight nerf. I don't think it matters that much, though. Got a buff to her unscoped projectile. You guys didn't know her scoped shots are hit scan, and her unscoped are projectiles. So when that's why it feels different when you're aiming with her hip fire versus her scoped accuracy. Scoped in is because it's a hit scan versus projectile. But now she's gonna have even easier time hitting with her hip fire. So I don't know. They made this seem like it's gonna be much more remarkable than it actually is. Lifeweaver got a decent buff, basically with survivability. He's going to be very difficult to kill. He's already difficult to kill to begin with. Knee-jerk response to Mercy. The Twitter consensus. Twitter consensus hit Ramatra. To be perfectly honest, I thought this was going to be a lot bigger than it was. Bastion might be more playable now. I don't think he's going to be OP, but he's going to be more playable. McCree was already playable, and he got a buff. HP, which he didn't need. Slight reduction magnetic grenade. Peacekeeper is slight reduction. So McCree got like the Soldier 76 nerf. And Somber can no longer blow up trees. Yeah. Like if they want Torbjorn to be able to save his turrets, they would literally have to make it so like he could swing it like 0.1 second or some stupid shit like that. Because there's no way for him to save it now. Maybe increase the health of the turret and reduce the damage of it. Either way, right now they made him too much. He used to be a builder like Symmetra was, which I'm not against, but they decided that they didn't want that in their game. So then they gave him like mini sentries, only it's not really. Yeah, just doesn't do enough damage, so it doesn't matter. Hey Marvel, good evening, dude. I don't know. Let's take a look at the Reddits here, guys. As I mentioned before, I thought there was going to be more here, but there isn't. It's basically, we have new hero, which, you know, is exciting. That's good, right? Majority of the player base doesn't really get excited about supports. There's a lot of people that play supports, though. But DPS is what gets everyone hot and bothered, which we haven't had a new DPS in quite a while. That being said, there wasn't a lot of new supports for quite a while, so But I'd rather them make new heroes rather than making new game modes. And, well, game modes are actually really important, but rather than new co-op modes that you're going to play once and be done with. But this is, I guess they wanted to make Titan. So here we are with a copious amount of development time that is now put into a one-time mission that you're going to play through, I guess. And once again, you can lock heroes behind a paywall, right? And like you have to pay to unlock them or something like that, like League of Legends does. For instance, everyone flipped out about it. You have to buy the battle pass in order to unlock a hero, which, as I mentioned, as long as you can unlock them with currency, like in-game currency that you earn, I don't think there's a problem at all. People got flipped out and they wanted it in the battle pass, and yeah. I guess. Need new heroes, guys. Need a lot more heroes. Top 500 nerf isn't going to mean anything at all. This is basically because of Yezna, but that's also, once again, because their MMR system sucks. There is no depreciating over time or degradation. From what I've seen, I haven't played it yet because we're still going over the patch notes. I've watched a couple people stream. She's a good DPS. Let's go with that. She's a good DPS. Oh wait, she's a support. So, yeah, she's a good DPS, but she's actually supposed to be a support. Yeah. Armor pack changes or armor changes. Yeah, like I said, I thought this was going to be more impactful, guys, because of the amount of build-up to it. Illari is just a new hero. New heroes are exciting. Very important to the game and the life of the game. Flashpoint, we'll have to wait and see. Story missions are going to be one and done. I'm very negative towards it. I have a strong bias because I think they're a huge waste of time. That's something you do in addition to release a new hero every 3 months or so. And instead, they're like, yeah, no, let's spend time on this. And you're like, what? Yeah, hey, look, this is what we've been working on since we stopped with the development of Overwatch 1. Oh, okay. Anyways, let's take a look at the Reddits. Let's see what the kids are talking about here. Maybe we'll glean some knowledge from the hive mind. Retail patch notes. Finally fixed a bug with immortality field device negatively impact the aim assist on consoles. We're finally free from DPS magic magnetic lamp ruining fights. This tongue in cheek. I can't wait to plug in my Zim again. I had aim assist off because it makes it more difficult to actually aim at players that I want to. That's the weird shit, guys, you hear from console players, which is there's a strong minority of players on console that apparently turn off their aim assist, which is bullshit, mind you. They love saying this, though. Because, of course, aim assist can occasionally get you killed, but there's no fucking way the majority of them turn it off. And if they do, they turn it back on, because playing with a gamepad without aim assist is terrible. It's horrible, which is why aim assist exists. Fortnite movie crossover skins. They do a lot of crossover. Fortnite kind of has a thing going for them, though, which is they just kind of had random derpy stuff. Overwatch has never been that way. That's why if they released John Cena to this game, it would have actually just made me like that. That's desperation right there. The kids love that shit, to be perfectly honest. They fucking love that, right? John Cena. Oh my god, memes, guys. Oh my god, clap your hands for memes. But the game has never involved like real people, and that's kind of where it set itself apart, right? Yeah. I actually saved, so occasionally, I haven't done it recently because there's just not a lot of good movies coming out, to be perfectly honest. If you're enjoying Blue Beetle, good, all the more power to you. But like IMAX, Occasionally I'll go to an IMAX, and it's only for movies I really want to see. You know, you save that gem. Like 4DX is type of movie theater. You're talking about the ones with moving chairs. I believe that's Adobe branding instead of like IMAX. But you save that crown jewel for something you obviously don't do it all the time, but you save it for when you really want to see something. This is what I do. Diva shift is actually insane. 4 seconds seemed how fast it was. Yeah, invulnerability is pretty big because you get popped half the time. Yep, but that's because Diva can't save herself, so. Console players apparently cheering about the lamp bug, which is probably just Zim users. I had to read the Life Lever buffs 10 times to make sure I wasn't reading that all incorrectly and saying, yeah, he's a lot. He was very survivable. They even said he's extremely survivable. Like Blizzard themselves said he's extremely good at surviving prior to him getting buffed. Immediately viable, the buffs are crazy good. You didn't need survivability buffs, yeah. Huge Life Weaver buffs. And his tree can't explode from Sombra, which it should still explode from Sombra, but... Voyage of Demeter. Is that Greek? Horror fantasy. There hasn't really been any, like, I used to watch, I loved comic book movies, and they just got bad after, Endgame. Plot follows the doomed crew of the merchant ship Demeter, led by Captain Elliot, who attempted to survive the treacherous ocean voyage while being stalked by a vampire. So it's a vampire on a boat. What was it? There was a movie, not a movie, a TV series, where they got trapped in the Antarctic and basically had to start eating each other. It got really weird towards the end, but it was actually really, really good. What was it called? The Terror. There's another second season which with George Takei was pretty terrible. Which is just basically a soapbox for internment camps during World War II, and nothing really. It wasn't. I don't even understand it. I don't know where they went with it. It wasn't anything like the first season. First season of The Terror, though, was pretty cool. It was a psychological horror about getting trapped in the Arctic with basically there is an expedition ship that got trapped, and then they had to deal with it. So. Yeah. Anyways, reminded me of that. Then there's also, was like 1899, was it? The, made by the people who made to the point at which it just seemed like they're just doing stuff to make you do homework, and it wasn't really all that interesting. Looks like I'm dropping frames, guys. YouTube occasionally disconnects. I don't know why. Yep, there it goes. And, oh, and it reconnected. Thanks, YouTube. Bastion armor. New Bastion grenade changes feel outstanding. It's a real threat now. You can yeet yourself with the turret. As a turret with the sacrificing 40 armor. Because the community was totally asking for Bastion buffs. The community didn't need to ask for it. He needed to be buffed. He wasn't viable. He was viable. He's just more niche. Once again, the Twitter consensus does not always know, guys. People can think what they want about the Twitter consensus, they do not always know. And Bastion needed buffs because he just wasn't good. And he got buffs, which is what he needed. So. They need to make up their mind on what Alt's EMP disables. What's the point of having tree stay if it disables sim wall? Yeah, no shit. They are very, very erratic in their enforcement of Alt's. Or what Alt Symmetry disables. They just have a list where they tick and untick stuff. Plan on playing Overwatch. We might not get to it tonight, guys, because this is taking a long time. Big patch for Overwatch 2. I think we're going to be playing that tomorrow. BattleBit, I love BattleBit a lot, but there's just not viewership for it, so... Yeah, like, it's great and everything. I really enjoy the game, but at the end of the day, it's just not... There's just no one watching it. Like, maybe if I was on Twitch still, it might have been alright, but when I'm on... There's on YouTube, Facebook, and Kick, there's just not anyone there, so... yeah, I think we're going back to Overwatch. And planned on doing it tonight, and we're going to play the co-op missions, which I don't think are going to be that great, but... We might not get to that. There's a lot to cover here, so... It's funny because Life Weaver was first released, I remember people saying comments, why would EMP destroy a tree? It's not a machine, or a shield. Now we see comments saying the opposite. So as far as I know, like his healing, even though it's organic in nature and combines like nanobots, this is just made up shit though, so it doesn't matter. People just come up with all sorts of reasons and rationale for why stuff should or shouldn't happen and just make it up in their mind. The form of it's biolite, not hard light. Both things are fake. Okay. Now, and there's people correcting each other while making up shit. Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason to what Sombra disables with their EMP. It's what the developers just decide on a whim to change. Rhyme. R-H-Y. Yeah, people they come up with all sorts of rationale. It doesn't matter, it's all made up shit. The developers literally can do whatever they want. And at the end of the day, that's what they did. It's just, Life Weaver needed a buff, they unticked the box for Sombra being able to explode the tree. That's it. Not much more to it than that. It's not following any logical pattern. Why'd they go to 0? Because the crossfade penalty was something very, very niche and actually was just a hindrance to Lucio. They're talking about the Lucio nerf. The Lucio buff, whereas crossfade had a penalty associated with it because it was a small penalty to begin with and it only really hurt him. So, it was just unneeded. This guy here's talking about them overbalancing now. Yeah, Lucio's not going to become incredibly OP because of that change. A more iconic duo than Blizzard and nerfing Brig. Brig being buffed multiple times. Yeah. That 50 HP nerf will turn her into cardboard. No, it won't. No, it won't. Diva buff and Brig nerf is insane. No. Diva's jets were already fucking fast to begin with. I don't think it'll be insane. It's gonna be annoying. Brig nerf. Diva's also very, like, people don't really understand this. I've heard no casters talk about this, guys, but Diva is very, very good at cooldown dumping on someone and instantly killing them. As Pharah, I've experienced this. I've experienced this myself multiple times, which is if Diva cooldown dumps on you, you're kind of fucked. If she just chooses to hold all of her cooldowns at exactly the same moment and then charge you, you can pretty easily get insta-gib before your healers can respond. No one talks about this because it's usually the tanks, people ignore them, but you can do it to anyone. Pretty much any hero, unless they have an escape, will be able to do that. And sometimes even if you don't have an escape, or even if you have an escape, she'll still be able to do it. Which is kind of a big deal. So she uses her rockets, her fusion drivers, and her defense matrix in addition to her boop at the same time. So like her jets, and then she does all of them at the same time to get hit for a shitload of damage, and then usually she'll melee you at the same time, so which is an additional 30. 30, 35, 30, I think it's 30 now. Uh, 150 credits a week is still positive change, not to be confused with coins. Still nice. Yeah, credits is just for old skins, that doesn't matter. Coins are actually the currency you use. Brig nerfs, really? Yep. Lots of good changes here. I don't know. There's definitely Twitter consensus changes. Cast nerf, you got an extra 25 HP. He is very powerful, as is Ashe. Soldier nerf doesn't matter. His mouse 1 is what does all of his damage. Illari is a great DPS, but she's a support. The real win here is being able to ping health packs. Okay. I don't think Diva needed a buff. She didn't. She possibly needed more utility to survive when she's in Baby Diva mode, and then maybe they could have taken away some of her mech kit, or reduced her mech kit if she could survive Baby Diva. As it turns out right now, like one of her forms, like her notable ability is to change forms, right, between Baby Diva and actual Diva, and her nuke, her ultimate, and she can't survive most of the time as Baby Diva, and she really, they kind of need to, like, they should just give her the kit from HOTS, like I talked about earlier with the torpedo dash, the concussion blast, and then a laser, instead of her pellet gun. And if you guys didn't know, Heroes of Storm, another MOBA that Blizzard came out with, everyone said it's terrible. It's actually really fun. I really enjoyed it. I spent a lot of time playing it. But Baby Diva in Overwatch 2, or excuse me, in HOTS, you could unlock a kit that would allow you to dash. Like you could do a short dash, like it was called torpedo dash. You could use your pistol to blow people back a little bit, and then you could also, so you could line people up, you could dash away, and then when people are chasing you in a line, you'd use her fire, which is just her laser ability, which basically fires a laser in a line, and then basically every person she hits in the line would give you part of your mech charge back. Like, they did a fucking better job at balancing Diva in Heroes of Storm than they did in the actual game. But, different game. And like I said, I'm a huge fan of mechanics. I think giving people tools where they can actually manipulate the game is good for engagement and keeps people interested in your game, because there's ability for people to do better. People always want an ability to do better. It's not just Kovacs clicking a fucking, like a pixel. That's not... I guess some people that are high on Adderall really love going to Kovacs and clicking that pixel when they're like listening to like some EDM or something, but yeah. Rest of the players want to be engaged, guys. They buffed D.Va before Hog, yeah. I should really just undo his hook nerfs. I don't think he needed a hook nerf. As we talked about earlier, when people were bitching about Widowmaker, or bitching about Roadhog instead of Widowmaker, Roadhog hooking someone and one-shotting them is very, very well telegraphed. And that allows people to manipulate the scenario and attempt to escape it before it happens to them. Widowmaker just steps out and you die. Or used to. It's not as big of a deal as it used to be. Now, instead, you just get Soldier 76 insta-giving you, so, you know. Game is not fun when Hog is meta. Why not? Okay. As opposed to what? You getting insta-killed by Doomfist or Zarya just running around at full charge constantly? What is the endgame here? It's just someone bitching with a catch-all. They forget the rest of changes? No, she's in there. Cass is underperforming. He's not. I get 2 and 3 tapped a lot. And that, like I said, this is where you start getting bad stats because there's a lot of people that cheated Overwatch. You start getting bad stats where you think someone's doing bad when he's not. And then when people are cheating on him, they're insanely fucking good, like with McCree, where he just runs around 2 and 3 taps you and you're dead. They'll say that. They'll talk about how horrible McCree is and still play him and still do really well on him. You can't make them happy, guys. Those are the same people that hate mechanical heroes. They hate anything that's just not Kovacs, where you're just clicking a dot. Break shield nerf hurts. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Careful not confuse PvE with PvP changes. Yeah, I mentioned... Yeah, I thought half this list... I thought half the changes here, guys, were for... or just all these changes were for PvP. They aren't. Half these changes, the more meaty ones, are all for PvE. And that's not worth covering. We didn't even cover that. I'm not going to cover that because PvE is going to be a one and done. It's not going to be anything people are going to be going back to. It's not something people are really even going to care about. Balance Team literally just said that Cassie's underperforming and thinks giving him 25 HP back and reducing his effective range will make him perform better. So if he's underperforming because he's dying too much, then you give him health. So just saying, oh, he's underperforming and they did the wrong thing because you want more damage isn't the same thing as what the problem actually is. So we have a guy with a lot of upvotes here perpetuating a narrative, which isn't necessarily the true, like what they were talking about or what they were addressing. Brig nerf. Doomfist changes feel like they're going to be good. 1 second. I don't like the Kiriko changes the headshots were the most fun part of her kit. You don't say! As a healer, your ability to duel a DPS and win is actually something that shouldn't be in the game and you're angry because it was taken out? I don't know what to tell you. Weird, huh? So supports, I don't think definitely should not be able to win against, like, duel a DPS. Most of the time they can, depending on which DPS you're talking about. Like Anna, she lands a sleep dart, you're dead. You're just fucking dead. Yeah. And putting that aside, she's really good regardless of landing a sleep dart. And Kiriko, also very good. She can always just run away. And then you have Baptiste, which literally does 120 damage per second. McCree does 140 damage per second. Baptiste can always win. If he has his lamp up and he's remotely competent, he'll win against you in a 1v1 because it takes time to kill his lamp. If his lamp's up, that's putting aside the fact he has self-healing and the ability to jump around in his bouncy castle, which has reduced fall, which is why it's so hard to hit him, because he can float around a lot when he's falling, and he falls slower than normal. So he can basically, like, levitate for a little bit when he bounces around. I call him bouncy castle. Very good DPS, except he's a healer. Yeah, you don't say you don't like the fact that part of the DPS is being taken out of supports. And that's not addressing the most egregious of the DPS. And it's not going to matter that much. It's 2.5 multiplier instead of a 3x. That means instead of a 120 headshot, she's doing 100, which is still going to insta-gib most heroes if she double headshots. Let's just nerf Mercy damage boost a bit more and increase her res. No. Res needs a line of sight check, which would instantly fix her text where she's really broken. Of course they want their movement back because they never die. Gonna get downvoted there because of Mercy mains. Mercy mains are like this hot and bothered part. Most of them really suck at the game. Hot and bothered part of Overwatch guys. Usually like 99% of them don't know how to play their kit. Like they don't know how to use super jump or text where you can ping pong back and forth or change the controls so she's actually really intuitive and she can go to characters. She can go to souls. She can go to souls when she's healing another soul, for instance, or she's able to ping pong back and forth between dead players well after they're dead and go all over the place. Yeah, most people don't even know she has a coast mode where she can use super jump to fly further. They just think you can just pop yourself up in the air. She has a bunch of different modes that she can do. Most people don't know how to do it, so most people think she's actually bad when she's not. She's a very, very good healer. It's just most players aren't very good, so. Alright. Let's see if we have anything else going on here. Those should not be worthy of change. Praise will get hats off and continue to make new, interesting, creative character designs. It's just another MOBA design. There's a lot of MOBAs that have had a character that's sun related, right? We talked about Leona for League of Legends, for instance, and character maybe based off that. Nothing wrong with that. Games will always copy each other, guys. They've done it since the beginning of time, and it's actually really, really sad. Good evening, Love. I appreciate the raid. Thanks, guys, for coming into chat. We are covering the patch notes and basically everything associated with the game tonight. I'm going to make a highlight of it soon. We covered the patch notes recently. We're just covering the dits now and seeing what they're talking about concerning the Overwatch 2 changes. Good. Good evening, though. But yeah, they copy each other since time began. The problem is when they, like I mentioned before, like after the fallout with Doomfist, where people hated the idea of characters that weren't just shoot a pixel, like they want Kovacs, right? Is you lost a lot of the mechanical characters, right? Characters should be able to do, if you play League of Legends, there's obviously 80 carries, which are just generally click the pixel, right? But there's tons and tons and tons of other characters that are mechanical, where they do stuff. Tons of characters which are mechanical, where they'll do different things throughout the game. And like in different ways, and some are very complicated, like Elise, if I remember right, or Jace. I believe it's Jace, the guy with the hammer. He has like 2 different modes he switches between. Yeah, good. Well, I hope you have a wonderful night, dude. But yeah, like the characters themselves, having characters that do more than just a stat stick is really important to video games because it makes it interesting for people. The interactions become interesting. In the ways that you can manipulate the game become much more interesting. Like we're talking about with the Diva changes, where they're trying to make her survive as Baby Diva, when they could have gave her the Heroes of the Storm kit, which is she has the ability to dash away. Maybe she can push people slightly with her pistol. And then she has a laser mode, which will give her more of a chargeback on her mech. So you are rewarding skill where if she lines up players, if you guys have played Here's the Storm, you line up players, and if you hit them all, it gives you part of your ult or your part of your mech chargeback. And you know, that's actually a really big deal, and it does damage at the same time. So then people on the other team will play around the fact that she's trying to line people up, and then she'll play around the idea that she has to line people up to get more ult charge back, so maybe she can get her mech back. And it's very rewarding. But if you don't have that in the game, and you just have a guy where you're shooting a pea pistol, and hopefully people just don't walk around you because they want to stagger you and literally let you do whatever you want, because basically you're pointless. Like your life is basically forfeit, and you have to kill yourself in game. Yeah, not really where you want to be. And mechanics are very, very important. They're very, very important to games, guys, to make them interesting, as I've mentioned before. And Overwatch has went through a dark age where all the esports, the OWL players wanted the game to be Counter-Strike, and I don't agree with that. I think Doomfist was better as a DPS. I think Mei should have been a tank in Overwatch 2. Doomfist should have been the DPS, and Mei should have been the tank in Overwatch 2. And she has the kit, basically all the kit for it. She just didn't have the HP pool to do it. And instead, they did the opposite of it. Doomfist, like him going down a hallway and, fisting the shit out of someone because they aren't paying attention. Tough shit. You hear him growling down a hallway, you don't walk into him growling down a hallway because, he's coming for you. So, anyways. I hope they get out of it. I hope they get out of the rut. That was kind of a tangent here, segue. Good character designs, guys. Characters that do really cool things. From what I've seen, we have not played. Illari definitely looks like a great DPS, but she's supposed to be a support, so. Let's see what else we got going on here. I think that's pretty much everything. Oh, there's Steam too. I don't know how they hook up your Steam profile, so I was hoping that you could actually change your username through Steam, because this game does not have an anti-streaming mode. It doesn't have like an anonymous mode or an anti-stream sniper mode. It does. They put in a stream sniper mode, and it turns out it doesn't hide your username, which makes it absolutely worthless. They could, they just chose not to. I was hoping you could change your username, and I don't think you can. I assume you link your account with Steam or something. Play it through Steam. Yeah, so the problem is, even if I name change on Battle.net, is like all my friends that are on Battle.net will then actually, overwhelmingly negative, wow. All my friends on Battle.net will obviously have no idea who I am. And that's why I wanted to avoid it. The people who make Overwatch porn work harder than the people who make Overwatch. Yeah, like there's a lot of people, guys, from what I heard, based on the Twitters, based on social medias, there were a lot of people that had reviews planned. Like they wrote the review prior to it releasing on Steam, so they could do this. It's kind of funny. The DLC is already out, Marvel. Or no. Yeah, if you're talking about the co-op event, that's already out. The invasions are already out. For what I understand, the second mission is currently bugged, but they're currently already out. Steam purchasers other. Uninstalled this game 10 out of 10. TF2 outlived Overwatch? I mean, not really, but you know. Team Fortress 2 still exists. There's that. Yeah, then you got the TF2 fucks that want to draw attention back to TF2. Yeah. Like I said, I think one of the biggest positive changes they could make to Overwatch is revamping quick play and making it more of a shit show like Team Fortress 2 is, to be perfectly honest. I haven't played Team Fortress 2 in forever. But having, like, making it 10v10, making it the ratio of TDS, so whatever ratio of tanks to DPS to support they want, increasing the length of the game by making the cart or whatever move slower so you can draw it out longer. There's a lot of things you could do to revamp the map to squish more people into it and not allow duplicate picks. And it'd be more of a shitfest, and people would have fun. They'd tee-hee and laugh and run around as May and multiple Mays and whatever, but be better than Quick Play is now, which Quick Play is just bad comp. They really, really want to stay away from adding more players for some reason. This game is similar to BattleBit. I don't think this is similar to BattleBit, Steam. Okay. I don't know. I don't think this will change your username in game. So if I do this, I don't even know if I want to play